Mother always made attempts of creating bonding experiences between her and her children. She did exceptionally well with Jessica, the oldest. She is now 28 and considers her mother her best friend. Her next child, Danny, wasn't so much difficult as he was uninterested. Danny was always the black sheep of the family. He was the type of person that made you feel unintelligent after having a conversation with him that lasted over 3.5 minutes long. The third child, Charles, was much easier to work with. He was a humble, caring young man who frequently exhibited compassion towards others. Even if he didn't want to go to the park with Mother, he couldn't say no. He was just that kind of gentleman. Then there was me, the youngest child of the four. For some unknown reason, Mother had difficulties coming up with ways for us to bond. It could be because so much of my siblings is seen within me that she didn't know which route to take. I had Jessica's friendliness, Danny's abstractness, and Charles's compassion. It may have been because Jessica's the closest to her that she chose that tactic. One day, Mother came into the kitchen with a bowl of raw, ground beef. The stench was overwhelming, the color a bit concerning. She then announced that we were going to make meatballs together. I refused, stating that the mere idea of sticking my delicate hand in that bowl of rancid flesh was most unsettling. She then responded by solemnly saying that it was one of her favorite memories with Jessica. I looked at the bowl and then at my mother. I considered it briefly, then replied with, "I'm sorry, but I'm not Jessica, and I'm not touching that." After kissing Mother's disappointed cheek, I packed up my things and walked away. My birthday is in the 3rd week of November. Every year, it gets unsettling closer and closer onto landing Thanksgiving. Can you imagine? I would have to share my special day with a turkey, cranky grandparents, and my incestuous step-cousins. I have always hated scary movies, blood, and looking at naked people. When I was 5, Danny made me watch Scream. I also hate potato salad. One time, I heard my parents having sex, and when I asked them about it later, they told me something about the sound of lotion bottles. A few years later, I heard the same noise again and prayed that lotion bottles weren't actually involved in what I was hearing. We have a dog door, but no dog. Once I fell off my longboard and tore my knee up really bad. I now have a scar the size of a quarter to remind me that I'm not immortal, indestructible, or good at skating. When I came home from boarding, Mother proceeded to dump the medicine on my festering wound. I screamed in agony, and Mother simply said, "Oh hush, it doesn't hurt." What does she know about pain? I really do appreciate ignorance. I didn't know moms could have boyfriends. When we were very young, Charles and I couldn't stand each other. Dead arms, wet willies, and crotch kickings were frequently exchanged between the two of us. Once Charles matured and I became less annoying, we then became inseparable best friends. Until then, though, sibling detest held strong between us. Charles loved to manipulate my gullible mind into believing anything he told me. He spoke of Conscience Land, a place that was unreachable to most but frequently visited by the few that could. Charles was one of those special few and had the ability to reach into Conscience Land, pull out my conscience into the real world, simply by transporting it via hiding under a blanket. These occurrences usually went something like this. The two of us would look at a mirror. Charles would point to his reflection and say, "That's your conscience." He would then point to my face, and that one is mine. He would then grab the blanket, duck under it for a moment or two, and re-emerge as my conscience. I was fascinated with this magic and often bragged about it to my friends. Charles was with me when I was telling my friend Emily of the personification of my moral mind. Emily demanded that Charles retrieve her own conscience so she could also interact with the beings from Conscience Land. Charles responded that he couldn't because Emily didn't have a conscience. I had never seen Emily cry harder. When I was asked to perform at the Muse Music Cafe with 11 other poets, I was the only performer whose parents came that night. They sat in the front row. My dad and I used to go all the time. We always talked about climbing the Pfeiffer Horn and crossing the Devil's Gate. Every year I tell myself, this is the year, but we still never go. I tend to get anxious about it because every year my dad gets older. When I was a little girl, I told my dad that he had to stay healthy and alive so he could be there for my daddy-daughter dance at my wedding. My dad is 59 now, and I'm not sure if I'll ever see the top of the Pfeiffer Horn.